Everybody's telling me right now there's people out there planning to come get me, bro. People coming here to tell my family that there's people that want to kidnap me or they're threatening to kidnap me. Even last night, I'm scared a little bit. I'm scared.
I don't wanna go, just only you and me.
Why?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid if we don't have somebody with us.
On the night of October 17th, 2024, deep in the rural shadows of Cebuco, Zamboanga del Norte, a terrifying chain of events unfolded. The evening was warm, the kind that made the jungle hum with restless energy.
Scared here of dangerous people. I always have to hide. See, looks like the guy had a gun. There's like so many of them. There's like 4 of them. And they're looking at us. They're at me.
But for one American YouTuber, that night would mark the beginning of a nightmare. A sharp knock echoed through the dimly lit home where 26-year-old Elliot Eastman lived with his wife. What started as a quiet evening would spiral into chaos within moments. The men at the door claimed to be police officers. They were armed, their presence intimidating. Before Elliot could react, the situation turned violent. Gunshots rang out in the night. 2, maybe 3. Blood stained the floor. Elliot was hit, his body racked with pain, but there was no time to fight back. He was dragged from his home, his screams swallowed by the darkness. Outside, a motorized banca, a small wooden boat, waited on the shore. Without hesitation, his captors forced him aboard and sped off into the open sea, vanishing into the night like ghosts. The village fell silent, but the horror had only just begun. The next morning, whispers spread like wildfire. Who were these men? Why had they taken Elliot? His wife, desperate and terrified, alerted the authorities. Search teams were deployed, interrogations began, and soon a tangled web of secrets and danger began to emerge. But as days turned to weeks, the silence around Elliot's fate grew heavier, suffocating any hope of a safe return. By December, the case took an even darker turn. Rumors surfaced, suspects were arrested, and then came the chilling conclusion from investigators, one that no one wanted to believe. But without a body, without undeniable proof, one question still lingers like a ghost on the waves. What really happened to Elliot Eastman?
So we made it to the mountain and we're gonna do some swimming lessons.
Elliot Eastman was more than just an American tourist exploring a foreign land. He was a man searching for something deeper. Born and raised in the quiet, picturesque state of Vermont, he had always felt a pull toward the unknown. Growing up, he was fascinated by stories of adventure, of people who left behind the comfort of the familiar to chase something bigger. He was never the type to settle for an ordinary life. Instead, he longed for new experiences, new cultures, and a life outside the confines of small-town America.
No tourist has ever visited this area. I'm like the first one who's ever... Well, I think there's been people who have visited, but they only stay like a day.
As he entered adulthood, Elliot discovered a passion for storytelling through video. He launched a YouTube channel, initially just for fun, capturing his travels, his thoughts, and the people he met along the way. His content wasn't flashy or overly produced. His charm was in his authenticity. He had an ability to connect with people, to show life as it was, unfiltered and real. Slowly, he built an audience of fellow dreamers, travelers, and those who lived vicariously through his lens. His subscribers admired his courage, leaving behind a predictable life to embrace the uncertainty of the world. But Elliot wasn't just a traveler. He was a man chasing love and belonging. In 2023, he made a life-changing decision. He moved to the Philippines, a place he had visited and fallen in love with. But it wasn't just the stunning beaches or the warmth of the culture that captivated him. It was a woman. He met and married a local Filipina, choosing to settle in Zamboanga del Norte, a region known for its rugged beauty, but also its dangers. To friends and family back home, it seemed like a dream.
If I was gonna go back to the States to do that, I'd have to get my license. I'd have to renew my license. Maybe I'm gonna go to the States soon, yeah. It's very possible. Obviously, this place isn't the most safe place for like somebody like me. Yeah, that's like a smart idea, honestly. Just get some quick delivery cash and come back. Not a bad idea.
Elliot had carved out a new life, far from the cold winters of Vermont, in a place where adventure was always just outside his doorstep. But beneath the surface, his new life may not have been as idyllic as it seemed. The region where he settled wasn't a typical tourist destination. It was remote, unpredictable, and at times dangerous. While Elliot saw it as an opportunity for an authentic experience, others may have seen him as an outsider, a target. His growing online presence made him visible, perhaps to the wrong people. And as he embraced his new home, he may not have realized the shadows that lurked around him. What started as a journey of love and adventure would soon turn into a chilling mystery, one that would leave more questions than answers. It was supposed to be just another quiet evening in the remote town of Cebuco, Zamboanga del Norte. The humid air clung to the night as Elliot Eastman sat in his modest home, likely winding down after another day in his adopted country. But at some point that night, October 17th, 2024, everything changed. A sharp knock at the door shattered the stillness, and in an instant, Elliot's fate was sealed. Outside, several men stood waiting. They were armed and dressed as police officers, their presence demanding compliance. To anyone else, they might have seemed like legitimate authorities, but something was off.
Check out all these cool boats, y'all. So very different. We got a Wi-Fi right here, but right now it is not working because we don't have enough battery in our solar to make it run. And it's already here at the end of the day. The solar is no battery.
Before Elliot could question their intent, the situation escalated. The men forced their way in, and what happened next was nothing short of terrifying. Chaos erupted, shouting, struggling, then gunshots. Elliot was shot at least twice, once in the leg, once in the abdomen. But even wounded, he was given no mercy. His captors dragged him from his home, his wife and neighbors powerless to stop it. Outside, the men hurried him onto a waiting motorized banca, a small wooden boat often used by locals to navigate the waters of the region. The engine roared to life, and within moments the vessel disappeared into the vast dark sea. Elliot's blood trailed behind, a silent witness to his suffering, but soon even that was swallowed by the waves. When the morning sun rose, the nightmare was undeniable. Elliot was gone. Authorities were called, and an immediate investigation was launched. But in the rural stretches of the Philippines, justice moved slowly. The search led to whispers, rumors of criminal groups operating in the region, of ransom demands that never came, of enemies Elliot never knew he had. As days turned to weeks, fear and uncertainty loomed. By December, a horrifying theory emerged, that Elliot had succumbed to his injuries soon after the abduction and that his body had been discarded at sea, lost forever. But no body has ever been found. No final proof of what truly happened that night has surfaced. And the question that still haunts those who knew him remains. Was Elliot Eastman just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was this something more sinister, something planned, something personal? When news of Elliot Eastman's abduction spread, a sense of urgency gripped both local authorities and the expat community in the Philippines. His wife, distraught and terrified, immediately contacted the police, pleading for help. The crime had been swift, violent, and deliberate. This was no random act of petty theft or opportunistic crime. It was calculated. Elliot had been targeted. But by the time the authorities mobilized, the trail had already begun to grow cold. Investigators began their work by interviewing witnesses, neighbors who had heard the gunfire, seen the armed men, and watched in horror as Elliot was dragged away. But beyond their statements, physical evidence was scarce. Bloodstains confirmed Elliot had been shot, but without his body, it was impossible to determine whether he had survived the initial attack. Authorities scoured the coastline, searching for any sign of the boat that had taken him or a possible drop-off location. But the waters of the Sulu Sea are vast, and if Elliot had been taken far offshore, the chances of finding him were already slim. With few immediate leads, authorities turned to a familiar motive in cases like these: kidnapping for ransom. The Philippines, particularly the southern regions, has a history of abductions, often carried out by criminal groups or insurgents seeking financial gain. If Elliot's captors intended to demand a ransom, his family and the U.S. Embassy braced for a call. But days passed. No ransom request came. There was no communication from the kidnappers, no demands, no sign that Elliot was still alive. This silence was ominous. It suggested that the people who had taken him never intended to negotiate. As days turned into weeks, investigators broadened their focus. If money wasn't the motive, then what was? Authorities began looking into Elliot's life, both in the Philippines and back home in the U.S. Was there anyone who wanted to harm him? Had he unknowingly made enemies? One theory suggested that Elliot's growing online presence may have made him a target. He had documented his life in the Philippines for his YouTube audience, sharing details about his location and lifestyle. While his content wasn't controversial, it was enough to make him visible. Was someone watching from the shadows, waiting for an opportunity? Another possibility pointed to personal conflict. Elliot had married a local woman and was living in an area where foreign men weren't always welcomed with open arms. Did his relationship spark jealousy or resentment? Some locals whispered about land disputes, unpaid debts, or tensions between expats and the community. Could Elliot have unknowingly crossed the wrong people? Authorities also considered the darker side of the region, criminal organizations and armed groups known to operate in Zamboanga del Norte. The area had long been associated with insurgent activity, and foreign nationals had been abducted before. But most of those kidnappings had clear patterns: ransom demands, negotiations, and, at times, eventual releases. Elliot's case didn't fit the mold. Months passed with little progress until December 2024, when authorities made their first major breakthrough. Several suspects were arrested in connection to Elliot's disappearance. Under questioning, some of them revealed chilling details. Elliot had been badly wounded during the abduction, and they believed he hadn't survived long afterward. Even more disturbing, they claimed his body had been disposed of at sea, an act that ensured no evidence would ever be recovered.
What do you make of local police making a public statement like this, that this young man is feared dead? And to make that announcement without the body is pretty significant, no?
It is, but when you have so much evidence and witness statements, and maybe one of the kidnappers that was involved in this given us a sworn statement as well, you come to a logical conclusion of his death, and you owe it to the family of this young man to give them the information of his possible death. And it's sad and it's tragic, especially living overseas, you run the risk of resentment, like you said, with his wife and other things. No matter what your status is in the United States, when you're in a foreign country, especially one like this, you're perceived as rich, no matter what your status is in the United States. And I think they fed off that. And that was the motive of this kidnapping.
For investigators, this information was devastating. Without a body, proving murder was difficult. The Philippine National Police and the U.S. government continued pushing for answers. But the deeper they dug, the more elusive the truth became.
Well, they can lead that investigation because it's a U.S. citizen. And we have the responsibility, or the FBI has the responsibility of taking care of U.S. citizens, even on foreign soil. So they can run the investigation through the U.S. Embassy in that area.
Can they take any sort of action?
Sure. Oh, yeah. You can develop a case. It would probably be on the West Coast. Maybe the LA office might be running that in conjunction with U.S. Embassy. And whatever that United States Attorney's Office is in that area could open an investigation on this, especially that you have one person in custody. If you can really prove that that individual was part of this kidnapping, he can certainly be charged in the United States.
Suspects provided conflicting stories, and those who might have known more either refused to speak or disappeared themselves. Despite the arrests and confessions, Elliot Eastman's case remains shrouded in mystery. If he was taken for ransom, why was there never a demand? If it was a personal vendetta, who ordered it and why? If criminals had orchestrated the attack, did they act alone, or were there higher powers at play? His family and friends refused to give up hope, but with no body and no definitive proof of his fate, the haunting question remains: what really happened to Elliot Eastman? Months after Elliot Eastman vanished into the night, the investigation took a dramatic turn. In December 2024, Philippine authorities announced a series of arrests related to his abduction. The suspects, a mix of local men with known criminal ties, were taken into custody after weeks of covert surveillance and intelligence gathering. Their connections to the case were murky at first, but under pressure, some of them began to talk. What they revealed only deepened the mystery and the horror. According to statements from the arrested men, Elliot had been gravely wounded during the abduction. He had been shot in the leg and abdomen before being taken by boat into the open sea. Some of the suspects claimed that due to the severity of his injuries, he didn't survive for long. Others suggested something even darker, that Elliot may have been executed to eliminate any chance of escape. The most chilling claim? That his body had been thrown into the ocean, ensuring that no physical evidence would ever be recovered. These confessions sent shockwaves through both the local community and international media. If true, it meant Elliot was never meant to return. His disappearance wasn't just an abduction, but an execution. But despite these grim admissions, investigators faced a critical problem. Without a body, proving murder was nearly impossible. Even with suspects in custody, authorities struggled to piece together a clear and consistent narrative. Some suspects contradicted each other, offering vague or conflicting details. Others remained silent, refusing to cooperate despite interrogation. And perhaps most troubling of all, who had ordered this attack? Had Elliot been targeted by a local crime syndicate? Was it a personal vendetta disguised as a random act of violence? Or was it something even more complex, an abduction that had gone horribly wrong? As authorities pressed for answers, several theories began to emerge, each offering a different explanation for Elliot Eastman's disappearance. One possibility was that his abduction had started as a kidnapping for ransom scheme, a crime not uncommon in the region. However, if Elliot was shot early in the attack, the captors may have panicked, realizing that a wounded hostage was more of a liability than an asset. With no way to demand ransom from a dying man, they may have chosen to dispose of him at sea, eliminating any trace of their crime. Another theory suggested that Elliot's disappearance was the result of a personal grudge. Living as a foreigner in a rural, often unpredictable area, he may have unknowingly made enemies, whether through financial disputes, land ownership issues, or even personal relationships. In this scenario, his abduction was not a random act of violence, but a premeditated attack, carefully planned to make it look like a botched kidnapping rather than an intentional act of revenge. Perhaps the most unsettling theory was that of a cover-up. Some of Elliot's supporters feared that the men arrested were merely pawns, scapegoats put forward to satisfy public demand for justice, while the true masterminds remained hidden. If powerful individuals were involved, whether criminals, corrupt officials, or those with personal motives, they may have used their influence to erase evidence, silence witnesses, and manipulate the narrative. In this version of events, Elliot's disappearance wasn't just a crime, it was a secret being deliberately buried. With the suspects in custody, authorities faced the challenge of building a solid case without a body. The prosecution relied heavily on witness testimony, forensic evidence from the crime scene, and the confessions of those arrested. But in a region where corruption and fear often silenced key witnesses, the truth remained elusive. For Elliot's family back in the U.S., the arrest brought no closure, only more questions. Was justice truly being served, or were the real culprits still out there, protected by silence and power? Without a body, without undeniable proof, one question continued to haunt the investigation. Was Elliot Eastman truly gone, or was there more to the story than anyone was willing to admit? As the case moved to trial, the search for justice became even more complicated. Prosecutors faced a daunting challenge. Without Elliot Eastman's body, proving murder beyond a reasonable doubt was nearly impossible. The case relied heavily on the confessions of the arrested suspects, but these statements were inconsistent, with some contradicting each other or recanting altogether. Defense attorneys argued that their clients had been coerced into confessing and that there was no concrete evidence linking them to Elliot's disappearance. Meanwhile, key witnesses were hesitant to testify, either out of fear or possible intimidation. Despite these obstacles, the prosecution pushed forward, presenting forensic evidence from the crime scene. Bloodstains in Elliot's home, witness testimonies from the night of the abduction, and phone records suggesting possible coordination among the suspects. But as the trial dragged on, doubts lingered. Were these men truly responsible for Elliot's fate, or were they merely convenient scapegoats? And if they were guilty, had they acted alone, or were there more powerful figures behind the scenes, ensuring that the full truth would never come to light? For Elliot's family, the trial brought little solace. Every day in court only reinforced the brutal reality that they might never get the answers they desperately sought. And as the verdict approached, one question remained unresolved. Would justice truly be served, or would Elliot Eastman's disappearance remain a mystery lost to the sea? Even after the trial concluded, the case of Elliot Eastman remained an open wound for his family, friends, and the global community that had followed his story. The court's decision, whether it resulted in convictions, acquittals, or a hung jury, did little to erase the lingering uncertainty surrounding his disappearance. For some, justice had been served, but for others, the verdict only raised more questions. Without Elliot's body, without irrefutable evidence of his fate, the case felt unfinished, a mystery that refused to rest. In the Philippines, the case sent shockwaves through both the local community and the expat population. Foreigners living in rural areas were forced to confront a harsh reality. No matter how much they embraced their adopted homes, they could still be seen as outsiders, targets for crime, suspicion, or even violence. Many questioned whether Elliot's case had been fully investigated or if deeper, more powerful forces had worked to obscure the truth. Some locals whispered that not all those responsible had been caught, that others who knew more had either disappeared or remained silent out of fear. For Elliot's family back in the U.S., the aftermath was a painful mix of grief, frustration, and unanswered questions. His parents and siblings had spent months pleading for more action, more investigations, more efforts to recover his body, but as time passed, authorities slowly shifted focus to newer cases. Without fresh leads, the urgency to find Elliot began to fade, at least in the eyes of law enforcement. But for those who loved him, the nightmare never ended. With the official investigation stalled, online sleuths, journalists, and true crime enthusiasts took up the case, dissecting every known detail in search of the missing pieces. Some believed that Elliot had been the victim of a failed kidnapping, his captors unprepared for the consequences of their botched crime. Others remained convinced that his abduction was personal, that someone had wanted him silenced for reasons still unknown. And then there were those who questioned whether all the suspects had truly been caught, or if some powerful figure had orchestrated the crime and remained hidden in the shadows. One of the most chilling possibilities? That Elliot's case was part of a larger pattern, one of disappearances that had gone unreported, of foreign nationals who had vanished without a trace. Had he unknowingly uncovered something dangerous? Had he become a target for reasons beyond his own understanding? As time went on, Elliot Eastman's story became more than just a case. It became a cautionary tale. His name was spoken in expat forums, in travel advisories, in whispered warnings to foreigners moving to unfamiliar places. His disappearance served as a stark reminder of the risks that came with being visible in a world where danger could be lurking beneath the surface. Despite the passage of time, one thing remained certain. Elliot's fate had never been fully explained. His family continued to push for answers. His case still sparked discussions. And for those who had followed his journey from the start, one question still haunted them. Was Elliot Eastman's story truly over, or was the real truth still waiting to be uncovered? The case of Elliot Eastman remains one of the most unsettling disappearances in recent years. A story filled with unanswered questions, conflicting theories, and a chilling lack of closure. Was he the victim of a failed kidnapping, a personal vendetta, or something even more sinister? Were the men arrested truly responsible, or were they merely scapegoats for a larger, hidden operation? And most haunting of all, where is Elliot? Without a body, without final proof, his fate remains a painful mystery, leaving his loved ones trapped in an endless cycle of hope and despair. Even as time moves forward, Elliot's story refuses to fade. His case serves as both a warning and a call for justice. A reminder that the world can be both breathtakingly beautiful and dangerously unpredictable. His family continues to seek answers, his supporters refuse to let his memory be forgotten, and the truth, whatever it may be, still lingers just beyond reach. If you found this case as haunting and mysterious as we did, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think really happened to Elliot Eastman? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth true crime stories. And remember, stay curious, stay safe, and keep searching for the truth.